So the Egyptians said the sun is pure energy. The whole story of Jesus is nothing more than a metaphor. These are metaphors for something far deeper that the ancient writers were trying to tell you in a metaphor. There's a symbolic story. And if you don't get the symbolism, you will go for your whole life in trouble because you didn't know how to read the symbols. You don't know what's really going on behind the scenes.
The sun gives life to every living thing on this planet. Free, abundant, available to everyone regardless of status, wealth, or belief system. And ancient civilizations understood it as more than just warmth and light. They understood it as conscious energy that interfaces directly with human biology. The Egyptians built temples aligned to capture the first rays of dawn, not for decoration, but for activation. Your pineal gland, that tiny organ in your brain that every mystical tradition calls the third eye, is a photoreceptor. It responds to light, specifically solar light. And when you practice sun gazing the way the mystery schools taught it, something dormant wakes up. Your intuition sharpens, your perception expands. You access states of consciousness that modern education told you were impossible, and it costs nothing. That's the secret they buried. Direct access to source energy through the one power source no institution can monopolize. But listen, before we even get into how to do this, before we talk about protocols or practices or any of that, you need to understand why this matters. And I mean, really understand it. Because what I'm about to show you isn't just some ancient technique or spiritual practice you can add to your morning routine. This is about recognizing a pattern that's been running underneath human civilization for thousands of years. A pattern that once you see it, you can't unsee. And I need you to stay with me through this entire thing, because there's information coming in about 40 minutes that's going to completely reframe everything you thought you knew about Christianity, about ancient Egypt, about the nature of reality itself. Information they definitely don't want widely distributed. So don't click away. You've made it this far, there's a reason. Right now, you're probably feeling it. That mental scatter, that sense of being overstimulated but undernourished. You scroll, you consume, you process information constantly, but somehow you feel disconnected from meaning, from rhythm, from any sense of inner order, and you've probably blamed yourself for it. I need better discipline. I need to focus more. I need to meditate more, read more, be more present. But what if the problem isn't you? What if the problem is that you've been disconnected from the one thing that regulated human consciousness for millennia, before electric light, before screens, before we decided we could operate independently of natural cycles? The sun? Actually, no, let me say that differently. Not just the sun as this glowing ball in the sky. The sun as a system, as the original timekeeper, the original authority. The thing that determined when you woke, when you slept, when you planted, when you harvested, when you moved, when you stayed still. The thing that literally gave life to everything around you and demanded nothing in return, except that you pay attention to its rhythm. Because here's what nobody talks about anymore. Before governments, before religions, before any human-made authority structure, there was the sun. And it had absolute power. Not because someone said so. Not because of belief, but because of consequence. You plant out of rhythm with the sun, you starve, you ignore the seasons, you die. You lose track of the solar cycle. Your entire community collapses. The sun was the first authority because it controlled life itself. And every ancient civilization understood this, not as worship, but as relationship, as intelligence operating on a scale so vast it shaped everything beneath it. And here's where this gets interesting, and I'm going to come back to this point in a few minutes with evidence that's going to blow your mind. But the word authority itself, the concept of something having power over you, that concept emerged from observation of the sun, from recognizing that there are forces in reality that operate according to laws you can't negotiate with, can't bargain with, can't escape. You know what I mean? Before kings, before priests, before anyone claimed divine right to rule over other people, there was this undeniable reality. The sun rises and sets according to patterns that predate human opinion. And if you're smart, you align with those patterns. If you're foolish, you fight them and suffer the consequences. The Egyptians didn't just notice the sun, they studied it, obsessively, for thousands of years. They built an entire cosmology around understanding solar mechanics, not because they were primitive people attributing magic to things they didn't understand, but because they recognized that the sun was the organizing principle of reality. Ra wasn't a god you prayed to. Ra was the principle of ordered light moving through time, of consciousness illuminating existence, of the eternal cycle that everything participates in whether you acknowledge it or not. And Ma'at, truth, order, justice, cosmic balance. Ma'at was what happened when you aligned with solar rhythm, when you lived in accordance with the pattern instead of fighting against it, when your personal frequency matched the cosmic frequency. The pharaohs weren't claiming to be divine beings separate from everyone else. They were claiming to be solar representatives, people who had learned to embody the principle, to become walking examples of what it looked like when a human consciousness synchronized completely with cosmic order. Now stop, rewind, think about what that actually means. They weren't worshipping, they were practicing. They were applying a technology of consciousness that treated the sun as an energy source that could be harnessed, directed and used for specific purposes. And the temples, those weren't just buildings, they were instruments, precision-engineered structures aligned to capture light at specific times, specific angles, for specific purposes. The Temple of Karnak has a shaft that lights up the inner sanctum exactly twice a year during the solstices. Not approximately. Exactly. These people were tracking celestial mechanics with mathematical precision thousands of years before we had telescopes. The Great Pyramid at Giza is aligned to true north with an accuracy of 3/60ths of a single degree. To put that in perspective, modern construction with laser levels can't achieve that level of precision consistently. Why? Why would you spend decades, sometimes centuries, building structures aligned to celestial mechanics with tolerances measured in fractions of degrees? Because they understood something we've completely forgotten. That light doesn't just illuminate, it activates. That when sunlight enters a sacred space at a particular angle during a particular moment in the Earth's rotation around the sun, it creates conditions for heightened awareness, for expanded perception, for states of consciousness that don't happen randomly. They weren't building monuments to ego, they were building instruments for consciousness expansion. And I'm going to tell you exactly how they did it and why it worked. But first, you need to understand how we lost this knowledge. Because the loss wasn't accidental. The loss was systematic, deliberate. And the people who orchestrated that loss, they kept the knowledge for themselves while feeding you corrupted versions designed to keep you passive. Stay with me because this gets uncomfortable. But here's where it gets complicated. Here's where we lost the thread. None of this was meant to be understood literally. And this is the part where most people get confused and either reject everything or turn it into something it's not. So I need you to really hear this because it's crucial. The ancient world operated on symbolic literacy, on the understanding that reality has layers, that there's the surface level, what you can touch and measure, and then there's the pattern underneath, the organizing principle, the structure that gives meaning to the surface. When they said the sun was Ra traveling across the sky in a solar bark, they weren't describing a literal boat in space. They were encoding astronomical knowledge into narrative form, into story, into symbol. Because symbols do something that raw data never can, they embed meaning directly into consciousness. They bypass the analytical mind and speak to something deeper. A symbol is a container. It holds information, yes, but it also holds implication. relationship, context, multiple layers of meaning operating simultaneously. When you understand a symbol properly, you're not just learning a fact. You're recognizing a pattern that repeats across multiple scales of reality. The Ankh, that Egyptian symbol that looks like a cross with a loop at the top, it represents eternal life, yes. But it also represents the union of masculine and feminine principles. It represents the key to hidden knowledge. It represents the breath of life. It represents the rising sun on the horizon. All of these meanings exist simultaneously in one symbol. That's not confusion. That's sophisticated encoding. But what happened over time, and this is critical, is that the symbols remained while the understanding faded. People kept performing the rituals, kept using the language, kept building the temples, but the why got lost. The initiatory knowledge that explained what the symbols actually meant, that got restricted, protected, hidden, and eventually it vanished almost entirely. So now you've got billions of people encountering these symbols, crosses, halos, solar imagery, resurrection stories, and interpreting them literally, taking them at face value, missing the entire point. Let me show you what I mean, because this is where it gets wild. Christianity is full of solar symbolism. Saturated with it. And once you see it, you'll never be able to unsee it. Jesus is called the light of the world. He's born on December 25th, which isn't his actual birthday by any historical account, but it is the winter solstice, the moment when the sun reaches its lowest point and begins its journey back north. 3 days after the solstice, December 25th through 28th, the sun appears to stand still in the sky. It stops moving south. It appears to die. Then on December 29th, it begins moving north again. It's born again. Resurrected. Easter. Spring equinox. The exact moment when the sun crosses the celestial equator, moving north. Day and night become equal, balance is restored, and then light begins to dominate. Resurrection. Rebirth. New life emerging from death. He's depicted with a halo, a solar disk, around his head in almost every traditional representation. 12 disciples surrounding him, the 12 signs of the zodiac through which the sun travels during its annual journey. And here's the part that's going to make you stop and think. One of those 12 disciples was a woman. Look at Da Vinci's Last Supper. Really look at it. The figure to Jesus' right, that's female. Art historians have argued about this for centuries, but the symbolism is clear. One of the 12 zodiacal signs is Virgo, the Virgin. You can't represent the complete zodiacal cycle without including the feminine sign. Da Vinci knew. He encoded it right there in plain sight. And the church has spent 500 years trying to explain it away. But if you read that literally, if you think it's just about one man who physically died and came back to life, you miss what the story is actually teaching. It's teaching you about cycles, about the inevitability of renewal, about how darkness is temporary and light always returns, about how consciousness, symbolized by the sun, by Christ, by the light, cannot be permanently extinguished. It's showing you the pattern that governs all of existence: birth, death, rebirth, expansion, contraction, expansion, order, chaos, order. The pattern repeats at every scale, in every system. And when you understand that, when you see that every religion is describing the same astronomical reality, using different names and narratives, you realize that what you thought was history is actually astrotheology. The study of how ancient peoples encoded celestial observations into religious mythology. Jordan Maxwell spent 60 years researching this. Manly P. Hall wrote extensively about it. Gerald Massey documented the connections in exhaustive detail. This isn't fringe theory. This is documented scholarship that just doesn't get taught because it threatens the literal interpretation that keeps institutions in power. Now here's what I promised you earlier, the etymology that reveals everything. Jesus Christ. the Son of God, S-O-N. Change one letter and it's the Son of God, S-U-N. And before you dismiss that as coincidence, understand that ancient languages, Hebrew, Greek, Aramaic, these were languages where words with similar sounds were understood to carry related meanings, where homonyms weren't accidents, but intentional encoding. The sun rises. The sun rises. The sun is the light of the world. The sun is the light of the world. The sun gives life. The sun gives life to every living thing on this planet. Without the sun, you cannot reach the Father. Without the sun, you cannot access the source of all energy in this solar system. This isn't blasphemy. This is the original teaching before it got literalized and weaponized by institutional religion. The early Christian mystics understood this. The Gnostics, the Desert Fathers, the contemplatives who practiced inner transformation. They knew they were working with solar principles. They knew that let your eye be single and your whole body will be full of light. Wasn't poetry. It was instruction, technical instruction for a specific practice involving the pineal gland and light perception. But the church couldn't let that understanding spread too widely. And here's why. And this is crucial. If people know they can access divine light directly through their own awareness, through their own practice, through their own alignment with cosmic rhythm, what do they need priests for? What do they need institutional authority for? What do they need someone else to mediate their relationship with the divine? They don't. Direct experience threatens hierarchy. Personal gnosis threatens control. Unmediated access to source threatens every power structure built on the premise that you need permission to access the sacred. So the symbolism stayed, but it got frozen. Turned into doctrine instead of practice. Into belief instead of experience. Into something you accepted on faith rather than something you verified through direct observation. And that's how you end up with billions of people who can recite solar mythology without recognizing it as solar mythology, who celebrate the solstice while calling it Christmas, who mark the equinox while calling it Easter, who use the language of light and resurrection without understanding they're describing the same astronomical reality every ancient culture described. But wait, there's more to this, because the zodiacal connection goes deeper than just 12 disciples. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, the 4 gospel writers, the 4 perspectives on the Christ story. You know what they represent? The 4 seasons: spring, summer, fall, winter. 4 cardinal points marking the sun's annual journey. Spring equinox, summer solstice, fall equinox, winter solstice. 4 perspectives on the same solar cycle. 4 accounts of the same story, told from different vantage points along the zodiacal wheel. And the story they're telling? It's the story of their risen Savior. Their Savior who rises every single morning, who brings light to dispel darkness, who makes crops grow and life flourish, who withdraws in winter and returns in spring. This is astrotheology. This is what happens when you encode astronomical observations into religious narrative so precisely that centuries later, people are still reading it as literal history instead of celestial science. Now, here's where this connects to you, to your actual life, to why you feel the way you feel. Because this isn't just ancient history. This isn't just symbolic interpretation of old texts. This is about understanding how your body and consciousness are designed to operate, and how catastrophically disconnected you've become from that design. Your body runs on solar cycles. Not symbolically, not metaphorically, literally. You have an internal clock called the circadian rhythm that regulates when you wake, when you sleep, when your body produces certain hormones, when your digestion works optimally, when your cognitive function peaks, when your immune system is most active. Every major biological system in your body operates on approximately a 24-hour cycle, and that clock, it's synchronized by light, specifically by the rising and setting of the sun. When you wake up and you get sunlight in your eyes within the first hour, not through a window, not through glasses, not through contacts, but actual direct sunlight hitting your retina. You're telling your brain what time it is. You're setting your internal rhythm to match external reality. Your pineal gland receives that light signal and starts a cascade of biological processes that regulate your entire day. But how many people do that anymore? Most people wake up to an alarm, a sound that jolts your nervous system into fight or flight mode before you're even conscious. They check their phone immediately, blue light blasting cortisol levels right out of the gate. Maybe they see the sun through a window if they're lucky, but window glass filters out the specific wavelengths that signal your circadian clock. Then they spend their entire day in artificial light, LED bulbs flickering at frequencies that stress your nervous system, computer monitors emitting blue light that tells your brain it's perpetual noon, fluorescent office lighting that contains none of the red and infrared wavelengths present in natural sunlight. All of this gives your brain completely confused signals about what time it is and what it should be doing. Then they wonder why they can't sleep at night, why they feel tired all day but wired at 11 p.m., why their mood is unstable, why they can't focus, why their digestion is a mess, why they feel disconnected from any sense of rhythm or order, why they need coffee to wake up and melatonin to sleep and stimulants to focus and sedatives to calm down. You're not broken, you're desynchronized. And the Egyptians knew this 3,000 years ago. They knew that the pineal gland, which they symbolized as the eye of Horus, as the Died pillar, as the seat of inner vision, was the mediator between external light and internal awareness. That it was both a biological organ and a gateway to expanded perception. Let me show you something that's going to make your jaw drop. The Eye of Horus, this ancient Egyptian symbol that shows up everywhere in their art, their architecture, their religious iconography. It's not just a stylized eye, it's an anatomical diagram of your brain. Each component of the Eye of Horus corresponds to a specific brain structure. The pupil represents the thalamus. The eyebrow represents the corpus callosum. The tear duct, or spiral at the bottom, represents the hypothalamus. The extension to the right represents the medulla oblongata. And at the center, the pineal gland. Modern neuroscience confirmed this in the 1960s when researchers overlaid the Eye of Horus over brain scans and found exact anatomical correspondence. These weren't primitive people making up symbols. They were advanced anatomists encoding medical knowledge into sacred geometry. They knew the brain. They knew the endocrine system. They knew that the pineal gland, this tiny pine cone-shaped organ sitting in the geometric center of your skull, was the interface between light and consciousness. And here's what modern science has confirmed. The pineal gland is a photoreceptor. It contains the same cells as your retina. It responds to light even though it's buried deep in your brain where no light should reach. How? There's a direct pathway from your eyes to your pineal gland that bypasses your visual cortex entirely. Light enters your eyes, travels along the retinohypothalamic tract, and signals your pineal gland without you ever consciously seeing anything. This happens automatically, constantly. Every moment, light hits your retina. Your pineal gland produces melatonin, which regulates sleep. It produces serotonin, which regulates mood. It regulates your circadian rhythm, your seasonal cycles, your hormonal balance. And in certain states, deep meditation, near-death experiences, moments of profound insight, the moments surrounding birth and death, it produces DMT, dimethyltryptamine, the most powerful naturally occurring psychedelic compound known to neuroscience. The molecule that mystics say allows you to perceive higher dimensions of reality. Your brain has a gland that produces the same compound shamans use to access non-ordinary states of consciousness. And that gland responds to light. You're not going to like this, but you're walking around with dormant hardware. Biological equipment designed to interface with cosmic intelligence. And nobody told you how to activate it. Nobody told you the sun was the key. Actually, that's not quite true. They did tell you. But they told you in symbolic language you weren't taught to decode. Let your eye be single, and your whole body shall be full of light. Matthew 6, verse 22. The single eye, the third eye, the pineal gland. When your attention becomes unified, when you stop fragmenting your awareness across 1,000 distractions, light fills your entire being. Not metaphorical light. Actual neurochemical activation triggered by photosensitive cells in your pineal gland, responding to coherent states of consciousness. This is what the mystics knew. This is what the desert hermits practiced. This is what the Egyptian initiates were taught in the mystery schools. But let me back up, because there's a deeper pattern here. A pattern about ages and consciousness shifts that explains why we're having this conversation right now. Why this knowledge is resurfacing after being buried for centuries. Every 2,150 years, the world changes completely. Not randomly, not by accident, because we enter a new astrological age and consciousness itself upgrades. This isn't belief. This is astronomy. The Earth wobbles on its axis, a phenomenon called precession of the equinoxes, which means the backdrop of stars behind the sun at the spring equinox shifts gradually over time. It takes about 25,920 years for a complete cycle. Divide that by 12 zodiacal signs and you get 2,160 years per age. And every time we transition from one age to another, there's upheaval, revolution. The old systems collapse and new ones emerge. The old gods get replaced by new ones. The old stories get rewritten. The age of Taurus ran from about 4,400 BC to 2,200 BC. The age of the bull. And what do we see during this period? Bull worship everywhere. The Egyptians venerating Apis and Hathor, the Minoans worshipping the bull. The phrase holy cow that we still use today without knowing why. The golden calf story in Exodus. That's about the transition from Taurus to Aries. Moses goes up the mountain to receive the new commandments, the new ordinances for the new age. And when he comes down, he finds the Israelites worshipping the golden calf, the bull, the old age, and he's furious because they're clinging to the past when God has already moved into the future. The age of Aries begins, the age of the ram. And suddenly ram's horns become sacred. The shofar, the ram's horn blown during Jewish high holy days, that's an Aryan symbol. The Lamb of God symbolism emerges. Sacrifice of rams. The entire religious structure shifts to reflect the new cosmic age. Then, around the year 0, give or take a few decades, depending on how you calculate it, we transition from Aries to Pisces, the age of the fish. And who shows up right at that transition point? Jesus, who tells his disciples, "I will make you fishers of men," who feeds the multitudes with fish and bread, who is represented by the ichthys, the fish symbol that early Christians used to identify each other, who calls his followers to be fishers of souls. The entire Christian era, the last 2,000 years, has been the age of Pisces, the age of faith, of belief, of following, of being shepherded like fish swimming in schools. And now, we're at the end of Pisces. Right now. You are living through the transition from Pisces to Aquarius, the age of the water bearer, the age where information pours forth like water, where hidden knowledge gets distributed, where the gatekeepers lose control of the gates. The end times that Christians keep talking about. It's not the end of the world. It's the end of an age, the end of a 2,150-year cycle, where belief and faith and following external authority were the primary modes of consciousness. And what's the new age about? Aquarius, the water bearer, the one who pours out the water of knowledge. Individual gnosis, direct access, personal awakening. The dissolution of hierarchical structures that depend on people not knowing how to access source directly. You're not going crazy. Reality isn't falling apart. We're in the birth pangs of a new consciousness cycle. And it's uncomfortable and disorienting. And it feels like everything's breaking down. Because it is. The old structures are collapsing. And either you're going to cling to them like the Israelites clinging to the golden calf, or you're going to move forward into the new pattern. And the sun doesn't care about your preference. It keeps moving through its eternal cycles whether you're ready or not. But here's what they don't tell you. And this is the piece that changes everything. The people who understand these cycles, who track them, who align their actions with cosmic timing. They have power, real power, not the kind of power that comes from force, but the kind that comes from working with natural law instead of against it. The Egyptians understood this profoundly. They didn't just observe the sun. They built their entire civilization around solar alignment. Their calendar, their festivals, their agricultural cycles, their architectural orientation, their initiation rites. Everything synchronized to celestial mechanics. The flooding of the Nile, the event that made Egyptian civilization possible, was predicted by watching Sirius. When Sirius rose heliacally at dawn, appearing just before sunrise after a period of invisibility, the Nile would flood within days, every single year. Like clockwork. This wasn't magic, this was precision observation of celestial patterns creating reliable predictions about terrestrial events. And the priests who knew how to track this, they had authority, real authority. Because they could tell you when to plant, when to harvest, when the flood was coming, when the season would change. Knowledge of cycles is power. Control of the calendar is control of consciousness. Think about it. Whoever decides when the holy days are, whoever determines when you celebrate, when you fast, when you rest, when you work, that person controls the rhythm of your life, controls how you mark time, controls what you pay attention to, and when. The Catholic Church knew this. That's why they absorbed pagan solar festivals and renamed them Christian holidays. Winter solstice becomes Christmas, spring equinox becomes Easter. They didn't try to eliminate solar observation, they co-opted it. Wrapped it in new mythology while keeping the same timing. Because the timing is what matters, the rhythm is what shapes consciousness. And now, we live in a world with no rhythm, no seasonal markers that mean anything. Christmas in July sales, spring collections in winter, artificial light destroying circadian cues, 24/7 commerce that never stops. A complete disconnection from cosmic timing, and people wonder why they feel anxious, depressed, disconnected. Like time is speeding up and they can't catch their breath. You've been removed from the organizing principle, and when you're removed from the principle, chaos takes over. Not dramatic chaos, subtle chaos. The kind where everything technically functions but nothing actually works. Where you're productive but not fulfilled. Where you're informed but not wise, where you're connected but lonely. The ancient world had a term for this, Mat versus Isfet, order versus chaos, harmony versus disorder, truth versus deception. And they understood that maintaining Mat wasn't passive. It required active alignment, deliberate attention, consistent practice, daily synchronization with the cosmic order. You had to orient yourself toward the organizing principle every single day. You had to participate in the rhythm consciously. And the sun was the primary teacher of that rhythm because the sun never lies. It doesn't negotiate. It doesn't compromise. It doesn't care about your opinion or your feelings or your preferences. It rises and sets according to laws that predate human existence by billions of years. And if you align with those laws, you experience coherence. If you fight those laws, you experience friction. This is what the Hermetic texts mean when they talk about working with natural law instead of against it. When they talk about vibration, rhythm, correspondence, polarity, They're describing the structure of reality itself and teaching you how to harmonize with it instead of constantly battling it. The first Hermetic principle: the all is mind. The universe is mental. Consciousness is primary. The second principle: correspondence. As above, so below. As within, so without. Patterns repeat at every scale. The sun is above. Your solar plexus, literally named after the sun, is below. The sun rises and sets. Your consciousness expands and contracts. The sun moves through seasonal cycles. Your energy moves through phases. This isn't metaphor. This is observation of actual patterns. Recognizable, repeatable, verifiable patterns. And when you understand these correspondences, when you recognize that you are a microcosm reflecting the macrocosm, you start to see how deliberate the ancient systems were, how precise, how sophisticated. They weren't primitive. We're primitives compared to them. We can build computers, but we can't regulate our own sleep cycles. We can split atoms, but we can't quiet our minds. We can send signals to Mars, but we can't synchronize with the planet we're standing on. The Hermetic principle of vibration says, everything moves, everything vibrates, nothing is at rest. Different states of consciousness at different rates of vibration. Dense, chaotic thinking vibrates at a low frequency. Clear, coherent awareness vibrates at a higher frequency. And depending on your vibrational state, you resonate with different aspects of reality. You tune in to different channels, so to speak. When your mind is scattered, when you're fragmented across a dozen tasks, stressed, reactive, overstimulated, you're vibrating at a low frequency. You're resonating with chaos, with disorder, with isfet. But when you align with solar rhythm, when you rise with the sun, when you expose yourself to dawn light, when you synchronize your internal clock with external reality, your vibration stabilizes. Coherence replaces chaos. Clarity replaces confusion. You start resonating with Mart, with order, with truth. And here's the wild part. This isn't just biology, it's perception. Because the way you perceive reality is directly related to your state of consciousness. And your state of consciousness is directly related to your biological rhythm. And your biological rhythm is directly related to light exposure. So the sun doesn't just give you energy, it shapes your perception of reality itself. Let me say that again because it's crucial. The sun shapes your perception of reality itself. When you're properly synchronized with solar cycles, you think differently, you feel differently, you perceive differently. Problems that seemed overwhelming feel manageable. Confusion that felt permanent starts clearing. Intuition that felt blocked starts flowing. This is what the ancient teachings were always pointing toward. Not belief, not worship, not adherence to doctrine, but direct experience of how consciousness operates within natural law. And it starts with something as simple as paying attention to light. The Egyptian priests understood this so completely, they built structures, massive structures that took decades to build, aligned to capture specific qualities of light at specific times. The Pyramid of Giza isn't just aligned to true north. The descending passage aligns with Thuban, which was the pole star when the pyramid was built. The ascending passage aligns with Sirius. The king's chamber has shafts pointing to Orion's belt. These weren't decorative choices. These were functional alignments designed to channel specific stellar frequencies at specific times for specific purposes. And what were those purposes? Initiation, transformation, consciousness activation. The king's chamber wasn't a tomb. It was an initiation chamber, a place where the pharaoh, or the initiate being prepared for higher levels of consciousness, would lie in the granite sarcophagus during specific stellar alignments and experience. What? We don't have complete records. The mystery school teachings were oral transmissions, not written texts. What got written down was encoded symbolically for those who already understood. But we know some things. We know the experience involved death and rebirth symbolism. We know it involved confrontation with fear. We know it involved expansion beyond normal consciousness boundaries. We know that those who completed the initiation were called twice born, born once from the mother, born again from direct encounter with cosmic intelligence. And we know light played a central role. Stellar light, solar light. Light as the carrier wave for information, for activation, for transmission of gnosis. Because light isn't just photons bouncing around. Light carries information. Light is information. Your DNA, the genetic code that builds your entire body, responds to light frequencies. Specific wavelengths trigger specific genetic expressions. This is established science. Photobiomodulation, optogenetics. The study of how light affects biological systems at the molecular level. Red light triggers cellular repair. Infrared penetrates deep into tissue and activates mitochondria, the energy factories in your cells. Blue light regulates circadian rhythm. UV light triggers vitamin D synthesis. Different frequencies of light create different biological effects, and the sun emits a full spectrum, every frequency you need, in exactly the proportions you need, at different times of day. Dawn light is rich in red and infrared. It signals your body to wake gently, to start cortisol production gradually to prepare for the day ahead. Midday light is bright, blue shifted, energizing. It tells your body it's time for activity, for focus, for engagement with the world. Sunset light shifts back to red and orange. It signals your body to wind down, to begin melatonin production, to prepare for rest and restoration. This is a complete system, a perfect system, a system that evolved over billions of years to synchronize life with the most reliable timekeeper in the solar system. And we've disrupted it completely. We've replaced full-spectrum sunlight with narrow-spectrum LEDs. We've flooded our nights with blue light that tells our bodies it's noon. We've disconnected from the rhythm that regulated every living thing on this planet for the entire history of life. And then we act surprised when our biology breaks down. But some practices are robust enough that even when done imperfectly, they produce results. Sun gazing is one of them. The deliberate practice of looking directly at the sun during safe windows, when UV radiation is minimal and the light is gentle, has been documented in Egyptian texts, Vedic traditions, Taoist practices, and shamanic cultures worldwide. They all described similar protocols: dawn or dusk, barefoot on earth, starting with seconds, building gradually over months, never forcing, always respectful of the power you're working with. And they all reported similar effects: enhanced vision, reduced need for food, increased energy, expanded perception, access to information beyond the five senses, a sense of direct connection to cosmic intelligence. Modern practitioners report the same things, which suggests this isn't cultural conditioning or placebo. It's a reproducible phenomenon based on biological mechanisms we're just beginning to understand. When you expose your pineal gland to direct sunlight through the specific pathway that bypasses visual cortex and goes straight to your hypothalamus, you're activating hardware that's been dormant. You're restoring function that's supposed to be baseline but has atrophied from disuse. And it doesn't happen overnight. This is gradual, incremental. Like any biological adaptation, you start with 10 seconds. That's it. 10 seconds of soft, relaxed gazing at the rising sun. Not staring, not straining, just open, receptive awareness of the source of all light on this planet. You feel your bare feet on the earth. You complete the circuit between sky and ground. You become a conduit for energy moving between two poles. And you do this every day, consistently, building 10 seconds at a time. After a week, your eyes have adapted slightly. After 2 weeks, you notice you're sleeping better. After a month, your energy feels different. After 3 months, your perception starts shifting. This isn't dramatic. It's subtle, like tuning an instrument, like calibrating equipment that's been out of alignment for years. Your circadian rhythm locks in. You start waking naturally before your alarm. You feel tired at appropriate times. Your digestion improves because your body knows what time it is and can regulate enzyme production accordingly. Your mood stabilizes because your serotonin production is regulated by natural light cycles instead of being artificially manipulated by random light exposure. Your thinking gets clearer because your brain is getting the neurochemical signals it needs when it needs them, instead of being confused by constant blue light exposure. And slowly, very slowly, your intuition comes back online. That sense of knowing things without knowing how you know them. That feeling of being connected to a larger intelligence that's broadcasting information constantly if you're tuned to receive it. This is gnosis. This is what all the ancient teachings were pointing toward. Not knowledge about, but direct experiential knowing that transforms how you are. And it's available to anyone willing to show up consistently and pay attention. The sun doesn't care about your credentials. It doesn't care about your beliefs. It doesn't care if you've read the right books or studied with the right teachers. It gives freely to anyone who shows up. That's the secret they buried. That's what threatens every hierarchical system, built on the premise that you need permission to access the sacred. Direct relationship with source energy, unmediated access to cosmic intelligence, personal sovereignty that doesn't depend on external authority. You don't need a priest to interpret the sun for you. You don't need an institution to grant you access. You don't need to believe anything. You just need to observe, to practice, to align. And when you do, when you make that direct contact, everything changes. Not your circumstances necessarily, but your relationship to them, your perception of them, your capacity to navigate them with clarity instead of reactivity. You stop being a victim of circumstances and start becoming a conscious participant in the unfolding of your life. Not because you're controlling everything, but because you're aligned with the intelligence that governs everything. And that alignment, that synchronization with cosmic order, it makes you ungovernable, not rebellious, not defiant, just fundamentally uninterested in being controlled, because you've tasted sovereignty. And once you've tasted it, you can't go back to dependency. This is what the Egyptian initiates experienced. This is what the Christian mystics experienced. This is what every person who's ever made direct contact with source intelligence experiences. The form changes. The culture changes. The language changes. But the underlying reality, the pattern, remains constant. Light is primary. Consciousness responds to light. Alignment with cosmic rhythm creates coherence. Coherence creates clarity. Clarity creates sovereignty. This is the teaching. This is what got encoded in symbol and ritual and architecture and myth. This is what survived the fall of empires and the burning of libraries and the suppression of mystery schools. Because truth doesn't need institutions to survive. It just needs one person to remember, to practice, to verify through direct experience, and then to share what they've found. So here's what I'm asking you to do. Tomorrow morning, set an alarm for sunrise. Check the exact time. Add 15 minutes for safety. You want the sun fully risen, not the moment it crests the horizon when UV is still potentially harmful. Go outside. Take your shoes off. Stand on earth, grass, dirt, concrete, whatever you have access to. Face the sun. And for 10 seconds, just 10, look at it. Soft gaze. Relaxed, like you're looking at a friend. Feel your feet on the ground. Notice the quality of morning air. Pay attention to what happens in your chest, in your head, in your awareness. When you do this, don't make it complicated. Don't turn it into some elaborate ritual. Don't attach expectations to it. Just show up. Observe. Allow. Do that for a week. Notice what changes. Notice if your sleep improves. If your mood shifts. If your thinking feels different. Then decide if you want to continue. Add 10 more seconds. Build gradually. Or don't. Maybe this isn't for you. Maybe you're perfectly synchronized already. Maybe your life is working exactly how you want it to work. But if you're here, if you've watched this far, there's probably a reason. There's probably some part of you that recognizes truth when it hears it, that remembers something ancient and essential that got buried under layers of conditioning and distraction. Trust that. Follow it. See where it leads. Because I'm telling you, and I've tested this myself consistently, for long enough to know it's not placebo, something changes when you restore this relationship. Something fundamental. Something that ripples out into every area of your life. Not because of magic. Because you're working with natural law instead of fighting it. Because you're aligning with the organizing principle instead of operating in chaos. Because you're restoring biological coherence that your body has been begging for. The sun is the teacher, the oldest one, the most patient one, the one that never stops offering the lesson even when we stop showing up. And the lesson is always the same. There is order, there is rhythm, there is intelligence operating at scales beyond human comprehension. And you can align with it or fight it, but you can't change it. All you can change is your relationship to it. And when you change that relationship, when you move from resistance to alignment, from chaos to coherence, from fragmentation to integration, life doesn't necessarily get easier, but it gets clearer, more meaningful, more connected to something vast and eternal and true. This is what the Egyptians knew. This is what every ancient culture knew. This is what we forgot, and this is what we're remembering right now, in this transition between ages. In this moment where hidden knowledge is pouring forth like water from Aquarius's jar. You are not separate from this. You are not outside this pattern. You are made of the same light that illuminates everything, animated by the same energy that moves through all living things, connected to the same intelligence that keeps stars burning and planets orbiting, and life persisting against impossible odds. You are solar-powered consciousness having a temporary human experience. And when you remember that, really remember it. Not just know it intellectually, but feel it in your bones and blood and breath. Everything you thought you understood about reality shifts. You stop seeing yourself as separate and start experiencing yourself as participant, as expression, as localized manifestation of cosmic intelligence exploring itself through human form. And once you experience that, once you feel that connection viscerally instead of just conceptually, there's no going back. You can't unknow it. You can't unfeel it. You can't pretend you're separate anymore. Welcome to the awakening. It's uncomfortable. It's irreversible. And it's exactly what you've been searching for, without knowing what you were searching for. The sun rises tomorrow, whether you watch it or not. But if you watch it, if you really pay attention, if you show up consistently, if you treat it as relationship instead of just scenery, you might remember who you actually are. And that remembering, that's what changes everything. So do me a favor. If this landed for you, if something in this clicked or shifted or made you see things differently, hit the like button. Not for the algorithm, though that helps, but because it tells me this matters. That spending months researching this, connecting these pieces, trying to articulate something this slippery in words that make sense, that it was worth it. Leave a comment telling me what idea shifted your perspective. What piece made you go, wait, what? What connection you made that I didn't explicitly state? Because I read every single comment, and your insights often add layers to my understanding that I hadn't considered. And subscribe, because this is just the surface. We're going deeper into the mathematics of sacred geometry, into the psychology of symbol, into the neurochemistry of mystical states, into the linguistics of power, into everything they didn't teach you because an educated population is harder to control than an indoctrinated one. The age of hidden knowledge is ending. The age of direct experience is beginning. And you, right now, watching this, You're at the beginning of remembering something you've always known. The sun isn't just light, it's the organizing principle of reality itself, and you're not separate from it. You're an expression of it. See you at dawn.